Matthew here from miniwargaming.com, and it's time for another sit and talk. Now I'm recording this one all the way on Wednesday again, so if your comments were posted on pretty much Wednesday or the Thursday or the Friday, then I won't have been able to get to them and they wouldn't have been put into the randomizer. The reason I'm doing today is because tomorrow, which you've already seen, is our live Dreadball finals. So I won't have any time to do it then. And I just don't like doing them on the Friday, because then always run into technical issues of getting it rendered and uploaded. For some reason, uploading really long videos on YouTube, it's like 9 times out of 10 I have to do it twice, because it just has issues. So I'm just going to go through these. Of course, if you're new to this show, the Sit and Talk is where you ask me anything about anything. It could be about wargaming, business, religion, politics. So if you're easily offended by religion or politics, please do not watch this show. And the way that I choose which comments to respond to is, well, the current method is we take the top 10 according to your votes, and then it's just random from the rest. So it actually randomly prints them off after it does the top 10. It only does the top 10 that have enough votes. So if there's less than 10 that have enough votes, then it just does the top whatever, and then it does the rest random. And of course, if you want your question or comment answered, make sure you post in the comments below, unless you're watching this on YouTube, in which case, click the description in the video, or click the link in the video description, and go and leave a comment there. It's just easier for me to print off. There, that's all the housekeeping out of the way. So let's jump right into this. Adri 210. If you, Dave, and the rest of Mini Wargaming crew were Primarchs, which Primarchs would you all be and why? Now, I know this is going to be boring, but I don't really know the Primarchs that well. I'm big into 40k lore, but like most of the Xeno stuff. I've been reading more about the Space Marine stuff, but I have to admit, I love the Xenos lore. So your Eldar and Tau and Necrons and especially Tyranids. The Space Marines are actually the ones I'm least interested in, although I'm still interested in them. It's just if I was ranking them all. So I know what the Primarchs are, of course. Like each of them is there was like I don't even remember how many there were. I know Horus was one of them. I know like Sanguinor was one of them for Blood Angels. I know, oh, there's a few of them. So I guess I could probably answer the question because I know the chapters of the Space Marines and kind of what they're like. And so if I can kind of align myself to one of those chapters, then maybe I would be like their Primarch, because the chapters are kind of like their Primarch. So you kind of have the Blood Angels who are like, well, the Assault Marines are troop choices because they're all about just jumping into the fight. They suffer from their Black Rage and Red Thirst. You got the Ultramarines who are like the poster boys, like we follow the rules and all that kind of stuff. And so I don't know if I'd be like an Ultramarine kind of person. I think Dave, if he was any of them, well, obviously he'd be one of the Chaos ones. But since I don't know the Chaos ones that well, he'd definitely be like the Blood Angel one, like Sanguinor, where it's just like Red Thirst, get right in there, suffer from Black Rage kind of stuff. And then, let's see, there's Iron Fist, there's Salamanders, there's so many of the Space Wolves and Black Templar, and all of Black Templar are a successor chapter to another one. And Grey Knights, I don't know, I'm sorry. I don't have a good response for that. I just don't know them well enough. And that one got thumbed up like 30 times, so sorry for everybody who thumbed it up. Korg86, hi Matt, I've been a Vault member for over a year and everything you do is awesome. That reminds me of the song from the Lego movie, Everything is Awesome! I get that stuck in my head all the time now, and that's the only part of the song that I actually know. I can't remember the rest because I've only seen the movie once. It was a really good movie, by the way. The Lego movie, highly recommended. Have you ever thought of doing some downloadable content? It would be really great if you could put out custom scenarios that you guys have designed for us all to play at home. I'm really enjoying all the custom scenarios from the campaigns and like to do something similar with my friends. Thanks. That's a good idea. And I read this comment. I actually read most of the comments before this talk, which I know is crazy. And it gave me an idea that I'd like to implement, although it might be hard logistically, and not because it's hard to do, but just because we're so busy. And that is, we've been doing all sorts of custom scenarios in our campaigns, and some of them work and some of them don't. But some of them really work. Like, I think, for example, the Vehicle Bay mission from Snagabog's Greed, we were playing that, and I'm like, I accidentally designed a really good mission here. Like, the mission rules really worked well. The numbers you had, like the percentage chances of getting certain things, the objectives, it just was a good scenario. Like, it wasn't just a fun scenario because of the way it looked. It actually, when I played it, I'm like, this is really well balanced. It just was good. And so that's a good, and I thought this would be a good standalone scenario. Like somebody could just, you could put this into an Altar of War kind of book where it's like, this is the scenario and this is what we're doing. It would definitely be like Altars of War Orcs, because it kind of goes with the Orc teleporters and stealing vehicles, and not many other races try to go in and steal vehicles and all that. But it just worked out really well. So like something like that. Whereas like the Bomber mission, while everybody loved it, it wasn't really balanced. I'd have to go back and really tweak it, but then we'd have to go and play it again to make sure that the changes that I made were actually good, which we're never going to do because we're too busy making new campaigns and all that. So it might be a good idea if somehow we could, even if it would be awesome if it was community submitted, where they see the rules that we make and then they actually create like a document. That'd be kind of neat if we can get like volunteers to do that, where they actually write up the scenario, because you get all the information. You watch the scenario and you see all the rules and everything, so there's nothing that you're missing, nothing that needs to, you don't need like a document to see how it is, you just have to watch the video. But not everybody wants to kind of try to divine all that information from the video, and so it'd be better if it was written down. So that would be really good. We pick out the scenarios that we really liked, that really worked, and then made those as downloadable. So it's a good idea. We'll see what happens with it. Mr. 3, did you see Dave's video where he watched you sleep, LOL? Yes, and the ironic thing in that video is that I was making a sit and talk that Thursday morning when that was posted, and somebody had asked, does anybody do practical jokes? And I'm like, not really. Anybody do pranks? I'm like, not really. And then he posts that video and I realized he had recorded me sleeping. And I was like, that's ironic, because that video will have been posted before I actually post a sit and talk. So yeah, that was funny. I was tired. And then sometimes it's a good idea just to go and take a nap. It's important sometimes. Good for your health. Dalgreth. Hey, Matt. Once you have the mini wargaming army done, it won't ever be done, by the way. We always make it bigger. Will you guys have any extra single Marines with the mini wargaming color scheme that we might be able to purchase to champion our own collections? This would be a cool way to connect with other mini wargaming fans in the real world. It's a cool idea. And heck, we could even just purposefully paint up like 40 or 50 of them and make them a limited edition thing, and you could buy them. It's not a bad idea, but we're not planning on that because, we need them for our campaigns and stuff. Alpha Space Wolf. Hey Matt, I would like to have more Chris in battle reports or narrative campaigns. He is funny, awesome, and a great guy. Love his Saturday Way of the Brush show, Monkey Power. Only Chris laughed. Because it's probably part of your show, right?
Yeah, it's silliness.
Okay, silly. Can't picture Chris being silly. He's such a serious guy. I agree. I actually think that you will see him in future battle reports. So stay tuned. Signed, Alpha Space Wolf, aka to Chris Mini Warcrafts, or Cody. Hi, Chris. That's what he says. Vespasian Flavian. Wow, that's quite the name. Hi, Matt. What's your favorite film? Oh, okay. Well, it changes, obviously. As newer ones come out, I get new favorites. So I don't know if I have like one favorite, but I can tell you the ones that have been my favorite. And for me, here's the qualifications for what makes an awesome movie. At the end of the movie, I'm energized because of it. Like, I come out of it feeling like that was awesome. I don't, like, you can pick it apart. Like, most movies that I like, I do pick apart. And the ones that I don't like, I pick apart even more. So it's not so much about it being a flawless delivery. It's about, did it really entertain me? And this is something I think that critics usually kind of forget. They talk about all the other aspects, but in the end, it's an entertainment product. So if I come out having been really entertained, then that means it was a good movie. And so there are things like, for example, Man of Steel. The fact that the last third of the movie, sorry, I got an itch right here. The last third of the movie kind of dragged, and it was this long, drawn-out action sequence, actually kind of killed the movie for me. Like, I enjoyed the movie, and I can say I liked it. The opening sequence on Krypton was just fantabulous, and I loved it all the way up until that last third, and so I left it kind of not as entertained, and so that kind of downvoted that movie for me. Not because of all the ridiculousness that was in it, and you can show all the things that were done wrong and all the things that didn't make sense and all that kind of stuff. I don't care about that stuff. Like, I like the Avengers, and you can't have a movie that's much more ridiculous than the Avengers that's trying to be serious. Like, obviously you can have comedies that are more ridiculous, but the Avengers is like a serious movie with lots of comic relief, but still, most of it doesn't make any sense. Or it's just a little too darn convenient. but I still really enjoyed the Avengers. Now, I remember the last movie. Let's see. There's a couple movies that I just came out of really loving. I think the last movie that did that was Wreck-It Ralph, which is might be a strange choice, but Wreck-It Ralph was I just came out of that loving it. I remember like another movie that did that was Batman Begins. I loved that one. Didn't like the second one. Just didn't like the tension and I'm just not a big fan of that kind of stuff. I'm not a horror movie kind of watcher. I'm not saying that it was a horror movie. I'm just saying that I don't enjoy that for the first time. I could go back and I could watch it a second time and enjoy it a lot more because I knew you weren't gonna see him slice open the guy's face with his knife and all that. But it was just a little too dark, which I know it is. It's Christopher Nolan redoing Batman, which is dark, and that's fine. I loved Batman Begins. I thought it was the right mix of like grittiness and awesome action and just like adrenaline, and just at the end I just came out of that. I was like, that was an awesome movie. And that's what I want. That's the kind of stuff I like. So Batman Begins, Wreck-It Ralph, the second Star Trek, The Wrath of Khan, or whatever. What was it actually called? Into Darkness. That's right. I just remember the actual one. Star Trek Into Darkness. There was no colon there, so it's actually Star Trek Into Darkness. But anyway, I got that off of Everything Wrong With, and that was kind of funny, I thought. That movie did the same thing, even though you go back and you watch it and you're like, this doesn't make any sense. How fast did they get to the Klingon homeworld and back? Like, you're barely in warp speed and boom, they're there. And I know how far away those are. I watched the Star Trek 6, The Undiscovered Country, like a bajillion times, and it takes them a while to travel there through Klingon space at maximum warp. And this is the same Enterprise. I know it's a slightly alternate timeline, but it's the same one. In fact, I think it's even a worse one, because this is before this destroyed in the Wrath of Khan. I guess it was destroyed and all that. But anyway, so yeah, those are some of them. I have other like movies that I really like too. Like at the time, Lord of the Rings was probably my all-time favorite for its time. Like you have to adjust for inflation, meaning like now it's not my favorite because, well, it's an older movie and I've seen it a lot of times, and so it changes. But for its time, I loved it. So continuing with your comment, and what's Dave's? He seems to always be quoting them. Yeah, Dave's a movie fanatic. He watches lots and lots of movies. I don't watch them nearly as much as him. I don't know what his favorite would be. Also, could you ask Dave if he actually liked the film Shoot 'Em Up? He made a reference to it in the narrative campaign Bat Rep because I thought that film was rubbish. So ask Dave if you like it. Love the narrative campaign, by the way, really good. Have you planned the next one with your Necrons in it, Matt? Sorry, my nose is a little itchy. Dave's busy with the battle report right now, so I can't really ask him that. But have I planned my next one with the Necrons? And I've planned a couple more with Necrons in it. I have like a dozen ideas for campaigns. I'm still trying to figure out what I'm going to do for my next one because we're having terrain made for some of my Necron stuff, and so I want to wait for that to come in. And also, I just kind of, I don't know. Dave's finishing filming his campaign right now, like not today, but like currently. And he's doing like another campaign next week with somebody else who's coming down for like a full week, and he's just doing a campaign with them. And then after that, then I can start my campaign. So I got a couple weeks before I need to start it. It'll be a few weeks before you see it because Dave's will still be going out. So I'm still trying to figure out what I'm going to do. I have some ideas, some really fun ideas, but I just got to see which one I'm going to decide to do first. Archon Timatron. Hey, Matt. Still hoping after 4 years of watching every single one of these that you might read out my comment just once. Well, it looks like you got enough pity thumbs up that they got one to the top 10. I have had a thought about how Shadows of the Warp could work in 7th edition without being too overpowered. If you look under page 28 under Sanctic and Malefic powers, it gives a stipulation that any other Psychers other than Grey Knights or Demons respectively suffer perils on any double. Maybe Shadows could be on any double 5s or double 6s. That would make it riskier to cast powers without it being stupidly powerful. Anyway, love your work, as always. Look out for my upcoming YouTube channel, Archon Timatron. Yeah, that could work. Yeah. I still like my idea. My idea, which I said last week, I think, which is that when it comes to denying, you get a +1 to deny if there's a Shadow in the Warp within 12 inches of the caster of the spell. Because then it still puts the ball in your court to deny. it wouldn't shut down demons as much, which you might think, well, don't you want to shut down demons? And of course I do, but at the same time, it's like, you can't take something that they almost need that summoning. Like, it's a little ridiculous when they bring 30 of them, but they need a bit of summoning to make up for their lack of effectiveness. And that game, even when I played against John, and he summoned all that stuff, the summoning things didn't do anything. He killed me with a small portion of his army, so he didn't win because of the summoning. So yeah, either way, we'll see if they do anything with it, to be honest. I hope they do, but we'll see. Scary, I agree. Chris's quick tips are awesome. Thank you. And Chris thanks you. Alpha Space Wolf. Necronomicon. I wanted that username. Frowny face. Despite my name, I actually play Necrons. So Matt, what do you think is the best Necron unit for 7th edition since we have no Psychers? Well, I think you're overestimating Psychers, because it's okay not to have Psychers. In fact, it's kind of nice just to not have to worry about Psyker stuff. Necrons have gotten huge buffs. Like, their flyers are better, the vehicles are better. Oh, just so much is better. So what do I think is the best unit? I can't answer what the best unit is. All I can say is that a Ghost Ark full of warriors is now super awesome, because now it Jinx gets a 4-up cover save, and the guys inside don't have to snap fire, because the Jink rule says the unit that Jinx. Well, the guys inside don't count as the same unit as the vehicle. So unless they FAQ that, you can just move it around and Jink, and sure, the vehicle has to snap fire, but the guys inside still get to. So it's going around with a 4+ cover save, even on the first turn if it didn't move, which usually sucks, and so that's really good. And on top of that, if there's night fighting for the first turn, then they got 3-up cover saves. Flyers, like Night Size and Doom Size, are a lot better now, because it's a lot harder to destroy them, and you can't do that whole locked velocity nonsense that was always really hard to keep track of. They're a lot better. So, the command barges are really cool now. The chariots, the fact that the overlord on the chariot can come back with his chariot is really neat. It also has the disadvantage that he can't disembark, and if he dies, the chariot goes away too. But that's fine, because the chariot by itself is pretty useless anyways. Just had one gun and wasn't that great. So I'd say overall the vehicles have really been strengthened. So any of those will really do you well. So yeah. Mr. Negative 247. Do you play any board games? If you do, what would you recommend? I used to play a lot of board games. Now I have little kids, so I don't have much time for board games. But we have a huge collection of geek board games. Our all-time favorites are, I'd put at the very top of the list, Race for the Galaxy. Check out that game. It's an awesome card game. Just so much fun. Even 2 players. And that's yeah, I realize most of the time I play it's just with me and my wife, and so my bias is towards things that can work well with 2 players. Race for the Galaxy is really good. Dominion is a classic that I love. What other games do we fall back to? Like, we own a lot of different games, but the ones that I find myself falling back to are usually those. Like, we have Ticket to Ride and all that kind of stuff, but I find games like Ticket to Ride, there's not much replayability to them. It's like there's just a couple ways that you play it, and that's it. It's fun with a group of friends. It's easy to teach, but that's about it. But I'd say Race for the Galaxy, Dominion. The one that we kind of got into at the very beginning was Settlers of Catan. We don't really play it that much anymore because we just played it so much, and so I guess we can say that we loved it, but we played it so much that I just stopped wanting to play it. But right now, I'd say Race for the Galaxy and all of its expansions are at the very top of that list. So check that one out. Peter Gooding. I'm at recent Vault member here. Really, really want to ask how Mini Wargaming all started as a business and what led to that. I guess it's been a while since I've talked about that. It's like I've talked about it in past Sit and Talks, but it's probably been months, if not maybe even years, since that question has come up. Oh man, I got allergies and it's bothering me. So I apologize that you had to watch me wipe my nose, but by now, hopefully you're used to it. How did we start as a business? Well, it's not that complicated, really. What happened is, the part of the story is how I got into Warhammer, and that happened. My wife and I were waiting. We were in Hamilton, and we were waiting for something. We had an hour to kill, so we went to the mall, the Oakville Mall. I guess, yeah, the Oakville Mall, which at that time had a Games Workshop in it. We were walking around, and I saw Games Workshop. I didn't know anything. I didn't know about the company Games Workshop, so I thought it was a gaming store, like board games and role-playing games, that kind of stuff. We walked in, I saw it was Warhammer, and I was about to walk out when this little guy named Spencer came up to me, And he started talking to me, and I told him I wasn't really interested in Warhammer, and he told me about the Lord of the Rings stuff. Brought me to the back of the room where all the Lord of the Rings stuff was, and he was so enthusiastic about it, and I love Lord of the Rings, and so does my wife, that I walked out of there with the starter set, the Mines of Moria, and spray paint, and glue, and paint, and all that, and that got me into it. And then I got Dave into it, and then with a few months later, like 3 months later, Dave's like, he approached me, and he wanted to start a business together. And just because he was doing landscaping at the time and he didn't like it. I was running an internet marketing business where I was doing consulting for people who were using the internet to run their businesses. And so I had some background in that. And I said, well, YouTube is this new thing. It was back then, this is like 7 years ago. And I've always wanted to start an e-commerce site. So we love Warhammer, so why not do that? And that's how it started. And it's kind of evolved from there. So yeah, Dave and I have known each other since we were teenagers. We go to the same church. Our families are close. And so, yeah, we've known each other for a long time. So that's how it got started. That's the short version. I've only recently started out in Warhammer 40k, and I'm building up my armies as fast as I possibly can, so I love all the videos that you put out as I watch them whilst painting and assembling my miniatures. I was actually watching one of your battle reports that convinced me to make the Tyranids my main antagonistic army. Keep up the good work, you guys are great. Thank you. Death Moans. Hey, I love the videos, but I don't like the new intro. They are too loud and too fancy. Is there any chance that you are going to go back to the old ones with the green background, logo, and catchphrase? They were much nicer and more relaxing to start watching while painting. Whenever we change the intro, there's always people who say they love it, and there's people that say that they hate it. So it's just, it's just an intro. So we probably won't be changing back. But you can count on the fact that it'll probably change again in the future. DH Star Wars. Oh my, lots of comments already. I'm a longtime Vault member and I always encourage others to do the same. Totally worth it. Thank you. Well, I just lost my job this week. Oh, that sucks. 20 years. Whew. And I do have a very good buyout since I was a minor partner, so I could start my own business. Interesting. One of the ideas I had was changing industries. I'm in skateboarding and might stay in it, but I'm not so sure of its future. And of course, there is my other love is minis. Would you be down if I traveled up there from Texas to meet with you and about me opening a store here? Get advice and play some 7th edition games. Pick your brain and we'll meet you guys. I've never been to Canada, and while there, I'd like to visit my skate friends too. Thanks for working so hard to bring some great videos and supporting this community. God bless, Damien. Yeah, for sure. Now, I don't know how much of a good mentor I'll be for telling you how to run a store, because we're in a small city, so our store was never hugely successful, our brick and mortar store. Our online store did well enough, but even that eventually got shut down because when Games Workshop changed their policies and we couldn't sell online, that was just kind of the final nail in the coffin. We were pulling in a lot of revenue in the store, but it's very low profit margins because you have to compete online, and in Canada prices. Now you're in the States, it's a little different. You'll have that advantage, better shipping and better prices and all that. But yeah, so our store in the end has been closed. So I did learn a lot of things, and if we were in a larger area, I could probably run a successful store. It's hard to say that for sure because I've never done it. But yeah, I could totally teach you all that I know in one visit about running a store. And of course, come down and play some games. We're always open to that. Ravager, hey Matt, brand new Vault member here. That's awesome. I've been watching Mini Wargaming for a while now. Yeah, I recognize your username. But the draw of the new campaigns you're running made me think about joining up, and with the announcement of the Eldar campaign, I couldn't resist. Glad to hear it. I just want to say now I'm a member, the content is absolutely fantastic. I had no idea there was such a large plethora of videos and tutorials. I know. We do our best to try to promote it, but not everybody reads all the promotions and stuff, right? Big thumbs up and keep up the hard work. It really pays off. Also, these sit and talks are great. It's nice that you're willing to put yourself out there with your views and beliefs, and I enjoy watching, listening, and indeed learning from them. Thank you. King Log 100. Matt, what is your opinion on Warhammer 40k lending itself more towards shooty armies? I know that in previous editions of the game, close combat-oriented armies were generally more powerful. Just wondering if you think the game is progressing in the same direction as I do. Well, ever since they introduced Overwatch in 6th edition, that really did give shooty armies that little extra edge because they get an extra shooting round outside of their normal shooting round. And I know it's only on 6s, but that's still more hits, especially when you get like the tower rules where all of a sudden the guys next to them can help with the overwatching and really make a difference there. And when you pour enough shots in, it can really hurt your guys. Especially when it's like you need to get that charge and it's random charge lengths, and all they have to do is kill 1 or 2 guys to push that charge length back an inch or 2, which can make all the difference in the world. So So yeah, so what do I think it's been turned more shooty? Yes, I have. Yes, I do. It definitely has. You definitely could have had just an all close combat army before. You could still do that if you build it properly, but it's kind of shifted. I wouldn't say it's totally on the shooty side, but I think it's a lot more than it used to be. So where exactly it is I don't know. That's hard to really say. Sparkman28. Hi Matt. A couple of questions. Do you think school teaches children, other than the basics and social aspects, anything that can help them with the future? I studied art and music all through primary and high school, Scottish school system, as well as a whole host of other things, but I enjoyed and did well at those. And when I left school, I found there were no jobs that would be stable. So I went to college and studied to be a chef. I have a good job now, although not much time for gaming. But it really wasn't thanks to the 14 years of school, only the last 3 at college. Well, see, I believe that elementary and high school, or basically the school you take up until you're like 17 or 18, its main purpose is not necessarily to get you a career. In fact, I would say it's definitely not meant to get you a career. What it's meant to do is to kind of introduce you to all sorts of different subjects. You learn your math, your science, your arts. You even have like your physical education all the way, or for us, all the way until high school, at which point you can choose. And then you have your languages, like you learn English, of course. Well, I say of course if you're in an English school system. And for us, we learn French as well because we're Canada. And so a high school diploma to me was never meant to get you a career. A high school diploma was all about getting ready for post-secondary education. So college or university or apprenticeship or whatever happens to be. So I would say, yes, it teaches you tons to help you get ready for the future. The other thing it teaches you is how to learn. There's nothing that's wasted. And growing up, I didn't quite understand this. I would be in class and be like, why are we learning this? I'm never going to use this. But that's not always the point. And for the most part, I was wrong. It turns out that the stuff that we were learning was actually used in some field or another. But even if it wasn't, just learning to learn, being exposed to those things, having your brain exercised, all makes a huge difference to your standard of living. So for all of our young viewers out there, finish high school, get the best marks you're able to get, which won't be the same as somebody else, and then make sure you get post-secondary education, whether that's like a full-on university and master's and PhD, or whether it's a simple college course where it's just a year or 2 to get a technical thing, like I said here, to become a chef, or something like that. Like here, when I talk about college and university, there's different terms in different countries. University to us, that's like the 3 or 4 year programs that you don't necessarily come out of them ready for a career. Usually you need to go and get like a master's next. That's not always the case, but it's usually the case. Whereas college is more like hands-on. You go for a couple of years and you come out of it ready to work. Like you have very specific skills towards a specific job. And so, or you have your apprenticeships, of course, in trades, where you learn you work and you learn under somebody who's experienced in the field. So you should do one of those, is my opinion, and get as much education as you can so you can support your family and yourself. So that's my thoughts on it. Number 2, changing the subject now. Have you seen the 40K Ultramarine movie? I've seen bits and pieces, and that was enough. Like somebody posted on YouTube, and I just kind of like scrolled through it because I was curious. If so, what did you think of it? I thought it looked awful. The graphics looked horrendous. I've seen people on YouTube, they're like one-man shows, make better graphics than that. Apparently, I don't know much about the story and all that. The voice acting was kind of weird, and I don't know. It's just I watched it. It was just like I watched parts of it. I'm like I have no interest to watch this. I think the story of it would make a good single mission, almost a search and rescue mission to save stragglers of a brother chapter. Keep up the good work, Mark. Crownblade. Hi Matt. What are your thoughts on hats? I don't like hats. They make my hair itchy. And you might think I'm joking, but they do. I've always never been able to wear a ball cap, and it's not my style of hair, because I haven't had this style of hair all my life. I would wear a ball cap and it'd always get itchy. My brothers, on the other hand, all like wore hats religiously. Like they wore them all the time. They're like the kind of people who'd be like, take off your hat when you come in. Take off your hat at the dinner table. Like they'd always be wearing their hats. And whenever they take them off, they'd always have this stupid looking hat hair. But I just couldn't do it. I worked outside a lot, and as I was a scout when I was a teenager, so I went to camps, and I just couldn't wear the hats. I know they're useful for shading and for looking cool, especially when you turn it sideways. That just makes you look like super hip. But yeah, I just personally am not a big fan of hats. Like even in the winter time, I'll wear headbands rather than hats. So it covers my ears, makes the part that's important warm, and that's it. So that's my thought on hats. Also, which 40k armies do you find are the most fun and challenging to play against, and why? Ooh, fun and challenging are two different things in my opinion. Challenging, Eldar and Dark Eldar for my Tyranids, for sure. They seem to have the perfect counter for anything I could bring. Dark Eldar specifically. The most fun, I have to say, is the Chaos Space Marines against my Tyranids, because the Chaos Space Marines aren't super overpowered, and so when you play, you just have a good game. Orcs are the same thing. Orcs and my Tyranids, when I played against Dan, those were always super good games because neither of them were like super overpowered, and so they really worked well together. Space Marines as well I find are fun to play against because they're just a good all-around army, and so they're not typically like overpowered in one area. They're just good, and so you have to like really use your strategies to go against them. Of course, the players involved are the biggest part of the game, and whether it's fun or not, of course. But I wanted to know if you had any nemesis. Slop Artist, Matt, as you are Mormon, why do you not have any more tabletop scenery crafted from egg cartons and decorated with macaroni? That's awesome. Most of the viewers are like, why is that funny? It's a Mormon culture thing, I guess. Just, I don't even know how to explain it. Just crafts and stuff, but specific. It's most of the Mormon culture jokes come from like Utah, where you have like the super concentration of Mormons, and so that's where you have like Mormon functions where they bring Jello with vegetables in it. I don't know why, because I never do that, but that was just like the thing. So you get these cultural things. You can't help but develop your own culture when you all share the same religion and you pack like tons of them all together in a small area. Then you get some funny things like that. But you're right, we should have some egg carton and macaroni scenery. That's very true, thank you. The Vibesman, hi Matt. I've noticed in your battle reports you say that if you decide to look out Sir, you must look out Sir for all of the wounds, often correcting opponents when they try to look out Sir selectively. I don't think this is how the rules work. Could you explain your interpretation? I noticed this in your 6th edition battle reports, but decided to save my comment for 7th edition. Now 6th edition, it definitely was clear that once you started look out Sir and you had to continue. Some references from 7th edition, page 35 shooting, allocate wounds first, allocate a wound from the wound pool to enemy model closest, regardless. And then look out Sir and shooting when a wound is allocated to one of your non-vehicle characters and there's another model, he is allowed to look out Sir. Determine which model in the unit is closest to the character and allocate the wound to that model. It seems to me that you have the opportunity to choose to look out Sir every time the wound is allocated. You might be right, that could have changed, and you went on with the assaults and that's the same thing. Yeah, I'll have to double check those rules, but that wording may have changed slightly. I do remember in 6th edition that specifically said, at least I thought it did, that once you start Lookout Sirring, you have to keep Lookout Sirring. Like you have to decide if you're going to do it or not if you're just going to do it for each wound. So I'll have to look into that. And I've been enjoying the vault for a little over a year now. Thanks. Thank you. Mickey B15. Hey Matt, I'm also a Matt from the UK and have just joined the vault and finding the campaigns fun to watch. Glad to hear it. My brother has had a degree in film and TV for almost a year and is struggling to find jobs that relate to filming because going down the university route you don't gain actual filming experience. Hence, that's what I was talking about before, which is what filming companies want when hiring people, which has made 3 years of studying and thousands of pounds worth of tuition fees worth nothing. Well, I wouldn't say worth nothing, but I can see what you're saying at the same time. Looking at what you do at Mini Wargaming, I think would help him gain some filming experience being a 40k player with a beautifully painted Eldar and Dark Eldar army. Would you consider offering him a job when you move to a new studio? Well, you're in the UK, so that might complicate things. As for offering a job for that, well, I don't know. It all depends. We're not quite sure when we're going to be hiring. We'll always, I guess the answer is yes. We can always consider offering somebody a job, but as we expand, we'll put out job postings when we're ready to put out job postings, and then you can respond to those, and then we just review the applicants and pick the ones that we think are the best. As for getting experience for that, there are other ways, like internships, like unpaid ways, that allow you to get your foot in the door and get some experience as well. So it all depends on what's available to you. Jeppy, hi Matt. First, I hope your wife doesn't watch the show if you keep ignoring her calls. Yeah, she doesn't. Second, are you happy that now your broodlords can be synapse creatures with the Primaris power? Because of the FAQ, the Primaris power, it gives them like 6 inches. Yes and no. Dominion has become a lot less effective because now you cast it in the psychic phase rather than the beginning of the movement phase. Before you could cast it before, you would roll for instinctive behavior. And so now you've got to like foresee like a turn and a half if you're going to need it. Whereas before it's like, shoot, that guy's just at a synapse, let's quickly roll Dominion. Boom, we got him, we're good. Now it's like, am I gonna need Dominion next turn? If so, on which guys? And then he can just shoot down those guys. Kind of like force weapons are the same problem now. And it's a good thing too. Forces you to be more tactical. So Dominion's better and worse. So broodlords having Dominion, yeah, that's cool. Because then they can give at least their squad can be fearless. But I probably won't be using it on him very much because he's got the horror, which is typically a really good power. And you only have so many warp charge dice to use, and there's usually other more important things to cast. Wolf Hunter 1503. Hello Matt, what are your thoughts on gun control? I wanted to get your opinion due to the shooting in the city of Moncton. It's painful and heartbreaking to hear brothers in blue to go down in the line of duty. Ooh, gun control. I think if you're talking to American, gun control is almost more controversial than talking about religion. Because it's just like, holy cow, are there varied opinions on this? Like the one of the first amendments, I can't remember which one, is like we have the right to be armed, which, you know, made sense back at the time that was made. Does it still make sense now? There's arguments for and against it. Canada, there's a lot less guns, but it's just different. It was established. We were established differently as a country, and so it's just, I don't know. My opinion on gun control is that there should be gun control, for sure. It shouldn't just be like anybody get any guns that they want. Obviously, there needs to be gun control. Now, you're probably asking more specifically to what limit or to what extent. And I really don't really have an opinion on that matter, just because I don't really think about it much being in Canada. It's just not something that comes up. Here, it's not like everybody needs to be armed. Like that's a big thing in the States and maybe in other countries as well. But here, we just don't talk about it that much. It's not as big an issue. So, is that better or worse? That's the debate. Gimpnax, what are your thoughts on using non-company models to play their games? It is 100% perfectly acceptable, as long as they look somewhat like they should do. Like if you're like using War Machine models to play Infinity, then that probably doesn't quite match. But if you're using like Mantic models, which are like specifically built to replace Games Workshop models, I think that's fine. For example, all the companies that have models or bits that can be used to replace all of or part of certain parts of the models for GW. Perfectly fine, perfectly acceptable. As long as they stay within the legal limits, like Chapter House was skirting those limits. They made bone swords and they called them bone swords. That's illegal. Bone sword, that's a term, well, they called them Tyranid bone swords. If it was just bone swords, that would have been fine. So that was a whole problem right there. Or actually making a model and calling it the Doom of Malantai. That was like, wow, that's obviously copyright and you're using that title. Like you can say in the description can be used as a Doom of Malantai, but you don't title it that. That's the big issue I had with them. But other than that, no, it's fine. Perfectly fine. It happens in every industry. Like you think about it, for your printer, you could buy the official ink, or you can buy a cheap brand ink that is compatible with it. And it even says on the side, compatible with Canon, whatever. And they're not affiliated with Canon whatsoever, but they can say that. And that's perfectly acceptable. I have no problem with that. Photo Guy. Hey, Matt, I always cringe when people say that atheism is believing in no beliefs. That applies to atheists and religious people. Yeah, we've talked about this in the past. And I know I've said that atheism is a belief system, and it is in a sense, and people are like, no, atheism is not believing, and I'm like, well, there's still a choice there to not believe, and so that's in a sense a belief. It's more like it's more semantics. Like I know it's when you can't call something what the lack of it is. Like if it's a lack of a belief, then it's not a belief. So you're right, but it's just more like you're choosing to have the mindset in a certain way. That's all I'm trying to say. When you get down to the brass tacks of it, it's that there isn't any evidence of any deity. It's not a belief or faith that there isn't any deity, period. It's that there isn't sufficient evidence that one does or has existed. I would respectfully disagree with you, but that's fine. If someone could provide hard, testable evidence that a God exists, I would believe. It's something that has to be proven. Yeah, and see, that's the problem, because here's a cyclical thing right there. Okay, let's talk about like the Christian God, like the Bible God. He has specifically said that you have to have faith rather than knowledge. Like you have to rely on faith. So if we have an all-powerful being who says you have to have faith, then how are you ever going to prove that he exists? If he is all-powerful, then he can stop you from ever proving he totally exists if he wants you to go on faith instead. So that kind of becomes a cyclical problem that, let's say that you are all-powerful, then you can prevent other people from proving scientifically that you exist. And I know some people will be like, well, there you go, that's the problem. It's whatever, and that's fine. But at the same time, I don't believe that there's no evidences, but that's a whole other discussion at other times. But I can see why you're like looking at the scientific method and saying, well, that doesn't prove or disprove that God exists, and I agree. It does not do either. It's similar when people argue about what created the universe. There's no evidence so far of how it happened. There can be theories and suggestions, but there isn't anything concrete yet. Yes, and then I agree with you there, that we have like all the different theories, and I don't disagree with any of them, to be honest. Well, like the current theories of the day that have the mathematical evidence and stuff, like the Big Bang, all that kind of stuff. I'm like, no, I have no problem with that. If you asked me 10, 15 years ago, I probably would have had a problem with it before I really learned more and understood that, hey, no, this could actually be, because the scientific stuff talks about what happens. It talks about how the universe functions. It doesn't talk about why it functions that way. That's the question that nobody's been able to answer. And so that's where it kind of steps in. Is it just all an accident? Is it just random chance? Or that all of a sudden we have these laws in place? I've heard scientists come up with if there's an infinite number of universes, then each of those can have a different set of laws, and most of them don't work. And it just happens that we are in the universe where it does work. And of course we would be in the universe that it does work, otherwise we wouldn't have developed. So it makes sense so it actually makes the probability of us being in the universe that it does work really high. And so to me, that's like the two big camps. It's like, is it the random chance and we're in the universe where it did happen? Or is it that not random chance and that there's an all-powerful being, or God, who has set those laws in motion? So I believe it's this one. A lot of scientists believe this one, but neither of them have any proof. All that scientists can prove is how things work. And that's great. I love learning that stuff. And to me, it doesn't disprove anything about God. I know to some Christians or other religious people, they think it does, and so they kind of go against it. And that's where we get this butting heads of religion and science, is that some religious people are like, no, we don't call it the God particle, it's the Higgs boson. That's not going to prove that God doesn't exist. And the other ones are like, hey, this thing that we just discovered proves that God doesn't exist. And I'm just like, neither of you are right. Hey, you're scientists, you're finding out how things work. And I think that is fascinating, and I love it. And religious people, you're talking about the faith-based thing of God, and they're not incompatible with each other. They're totally compatible, and it works. It works perfectly fine. Like if you just have to think about it. If you could jump back in time 3,000 or 4,000 years and bring with you the technology of today, like just think about what people would see that as. They just wouldn't possibly be able to imagine it, and anything you do would look like a miracle. So same thing is if you have a being that understands all the laws of science, to us that would look like this all-powerful God, and to me that's who he is. And I'm not saying he's some alien. I'm not talking like the alien theories. Like, it's a whole other discussion about all that stuff. But to me, they're not incompatible. I just want to keep pointing that out. Not incompatible. Unless, of course, your religious beliefs are incompatible with science, in which case your beliefs are. But I'm just saying overall it doesn't have to be. I hope that made sense. And it does. People seem to get weird when religion or atheism comes up. We should just accept that's how people live their lives. I do agree. We do need to be tolerant of each other's beliefs. Everybody should be allowed to believe what they want to believe, as long as it's not like harming other people. Like, I believe my religion says I should just go out and mass murder people. Obviously, we should stop somebody from that, but you know what I mean. I personally think spirituality and religion is great for people. It can help them out. It's the institution of religion that I raise an eyebrow at. Well, that's kind of the same thing. I've yet to see a religious institution not be greedy or corrupt or try and hinder people's personal lives. Well, I think it's going to kind of come into their personal lives, because that's what religion is. If you're supposed to live it, it's supposed to change your morals and your ethics to something better, hopefully. I will say I'm impressed with Pope Francis. He seems to be one of the first popes who practices what he preaches. Sorry if this opened up any can of worms. I love mini wargaming. You guys are awesome. Vault member for life. Thank you. And you know what? Your comment is great, because you disagree, you have your reasons for disagreeing, and you can state it without being belligerent. That's great. That's what we should be able to do. You should be able to say, this is why I don't believe in God. And I should be able to say, okay, and this is why I do believe in God. We disagree, but I don't have to yell at you. You don't have to yell at me. We don't have to hate each other. And that's how it should work. So, yeah, I'll try to convince you of my beliefs. You try to convince me of your beliefs, and that's fine. Just let's not get to the level of hatred and intolerance and bigotry and all that kind of stuff. So thank you. Thank you for respectfully disagreeing. Luke F36. Sounds like a scripture because it's Luke, but an F36. But anyway, Beasts of War are going to be doing a 40K narrative now too. Really? Where'd you hear that? That's awesome. I want to see them do one. I'm always excited to see new people try out these kind of things because I get new ideas. Not just like the campaign, meaning like the story, but how they execute it. Like I wish that Beasts of War did more battle reports. And made it more of a mainstay, kind of like how it works for us. I know they're more of a news and coverage kind of company, but I'd love to see them do more battle reports because they have a way of polishing things, which we don't. And I'd like to see how they do it. It gives me ideas of how to improve our videos. So yeah. Excuse me. Deldar, Matt, in games of 40K, do you find that close combat is more fun than shooting? Oh, excuse me. Is more fun than shooting. It's so much more suspense-filled, and it's awesome. What's your opinion? Yeah, I'd agree with that. Shooting is just, but I guess it all depends on the situation. What I find suspenseful is like an action that matters. Like, do I shoot this thing off that objective, or do I shoot this really important thing? Or in close combat, do I win? And because then you have like the fearless close combat. It's like my guys are in synapse and your guy's fearless, and so whoever wins, you have to wipe out the other person. So that's not as interesting. So it goes both ways. Metal. Hey Matt, now that 7th edition is out and brings tons of insanity and madness concerning list building, what about a new form of bat rep, where each player uses the most ridiculous, most overpowered and cheesy list they can think of? I really liked your recent Demons bat rep, and I imagine it would be tons of fun to watch similar bat reps every now and then. Not too often, of course. Cheers, a Vault member. You know, it's interesting because I've watched that kind of stuff, and rarely do people really enjoy watching the cheesy stuff. You have the few players who want to see it, but most people don't want to watch that kind of stuff. It's kind of boring. It's like, yeah, there's ridiculous lists, and there's a ridiculous list, and oh wow, they're ridiculous. I already knew that. And so most people don't like that. They like the more fun, like the more friendly lists. I find that people find that much more entertaining. And it also brings out the best in the competitors rather than like the ridiculous list where people are just like rolling their eyes and like, oh, I can't believe you did that. But it might be fun every once in a while to try it. Like get John to come back and say, just make the cheesiest Psyker list you can, and I'll bring my Necrons and bring like all the flyers I possibly can, and we'll see who wins. Robbie King 123. Hi Matt, what are your thoughts on Tyranids in 7th edition? I think they're fine. They took some hits and they got some buffs, and I still like them. Do you think they are more competitive now in the 6th edition? No, I think they're about the same. And have you any future campaigns with your Tyranids? Oh, definitely we'll be having more. Me personally would like to see Tyranids versus Guard. Anyway, I'm a huge fan of your videos. You are the reason why I got into wargaming. Love your work. Keep on doing it. Thank you. No, I think Tyranids are right about where they were before. They took some hits, monstrous creatures and stuff like that, and they got some buffs. But like psychic stuff got a little better in some ways. It got worse in some ways too, but now you have access to more powers, and yeah. I think it's overall is about evens out. Cecil 824. Hey Matt, how was your week? Well, today's Wednesday, so far my week is good. Yesterday I was really tired. I had a really bad night the night before, but we've been working on creating a second studio. It's going to help us. It's going to slow us down from having to move, which was good because it allows us to put more of our money into improving our battle reports and videos and expanding and all of that. And so we're working on that right now. Seeing as Tyranids and Necrons are your favorite two armies, if they were put in a death match, which do you think would win fluff-wise? That's tough because they kind of... the Tyranids can't eat Necrons. So I guess I'm not sure what you mean by death match. If you mean like Dave's death match where you put them like model on model, that just depends on the models. But if you're talking about like, let's say the galaxy was just Necrons. Necrons managed to rise up and take over the whole galaxy. Would they be able to beat the Tyranid invasion? I think the answer would be yes. Because they would deny them of the most valuable resource that they need, which is biomass. The Necron worlds aren't necessarily dead, like they don't destroy all living things, so there still is biomass. It's just when the Tyranids fight any other enemy, except demons, when they kill, any losses they take, any losses the enemy takes, they get to eat up those guys and kind of regenerate. So even though they're taking losses, if a Tyranid wins a fight, then it hasn't taken any losses because it can take all the biomass that it's lost and bring it back in. Now there's certain weapons that'll kind of destroy biomass and stuff, and then they get all the biomass from the opponent that died, and of course they start devouring the world as well. Whereas when you beat a Necron world, you don't get as much biomass, and so the Tyranids wouldn't gain as much momentum as quickly. So it all depends on how big the Tyranid threat really is, because the Tyranid fluff hints that what we've seen so far is just like the vanguard of this ginormous threat that's in the void between galaxies, and that we've just seen a tiny percentage of what is actually out there. If that's the case, and there's this humongous amount, then the Necrons might lose. But I think that they would probably be the hardest enemy for the Tyranids to fight because of that attrition factor. That, you fight Space Marines, Imperial Guard, Tau, Eldar, anybody else, and you get to eat them afterwards. You get to absorb their stuff, and there's a psychic essence and all that kind of stuff that you can go after. Necrons, they kind of deny all of that. And same thing with the Catan, they just don't have anything to be devoured. So it's just bad food. And so I think they would win because of that. And then of course their technology is superbly awesome. So if they could ever fully mobilize, then they would be quite the force to be reckoned with. So that's what I think. Rezael, hey there again. Hi. I wanted to ask if you had much contact with Mr. Justin and Secret Weapon Miniatures. The main reason I ask is because I have purchased many of their bases for my Infinity Army and have been very pleased. I haven't had much contact with them. They sponsored our Apocalypticon 1 or 2 years in a row, so we got some stuff from them. The bases were all from the Tau City set. When I wrote a review about the product pointing out both some very good points and also some not so good points, I was contacted by Mr. Justin himself. He actually stopped his focus on other projects to look at the things I mentioned and then put the entire line through changes to increase detail and quality. That's great. He used me as a tester by sending me a new batch, and I have to say, wow. The detail of the new line and customer service were off the chart. I know you work with many other entrepreneurs in the community that do painting and basing, but if you haven't done so already, give Secret Weapon a second look. Very soon I will have some army picks of my nomads ready, and I will be sure to show some off. They are based in the original Tau City line, so the new series will be for something else, but I'll get those out when I can as well. That's great to hear. That's great to hear that he focuses on that and improving his product line and all that. So Secret Weapon Miniatures, check them out. Ramius, on the subject of launching multiple Kickstarter campaigns to help fund Mini Wargaming, being a Vault member is kind of like making a reoccurring Kickstarter contribution to Mini Wargaming. I agree, but without all the glitz and glam. I am happy to be a contributing Vault member. Thanks, Mini Wargaming, for the great content. I agree, and like I said, I don't really want to do Kickstarter unless there's like a product involved, like something that when you contribute, you get that product. Well, and it could be like digital products, but for me, it's more suitable for physical things. Not that you can't use it to Kickstarter a studio or a new YouTube channel. Like Tabletop did it for Geek and Sundry did it for Tabletop, and that worked really well. So you can totally use it for those things, but they don't have a Vault membership where people pay a monthly amount. So that's how we're getting you guys to support us, is by contributing to the Vault membership. And so that's what we use. And so if that's not sufficient for just our day-to-day running, then that's a problem. Obviously, when we go to expand, we need to expand within our capability anyways. So we need to wait until the Vault grows so that we can expand with more employees, rather than just getting a burst of money, expanding, and then the reoccurring money from the Vault isn't enough, which forces us to do more Kickstarters and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, we're definitely going to just we're going to just keep pushing the Vault. That's it. And people are signing up. Over the past few months, we've had the greatest increase in the Vault memberships. People are signing up. Tons of people every single day are signing up to the Vault. It's just awesome. You guys are awesome. The campaigns have really helped, but it's not just the campaigns. There's been other stuff too that we've been doing, and people are they're signing up and supporting us, and you guys are fantastic for that. So thank you. Aerith, what is your favorite part of 7th edition? I have to say the tactical objectives. I just love the dynamic addition they give to the game, and just how much, just how much they contribute to the game. They change, like you're just playing, and all of a sudden you do things that you would never have done because It's like, okay, I've got this really strong guy, but boom, all of a sudden I got to get this objective that's backwards, but I want to go after and kill that thing, but there's no relevance in killing that thing right now. I get no tactical objective points for it. And when it comes down to it, they're really important. So I actually diverted, or I threw away a whole group of Hormigons because I was playing against Dave in the one battle report, and I moved up, and there was an objective which I had 2 objective cards for, so it was worth 2 points. And he was sitting on it with a bunch of guys. And I bombed the crap out of them and got them off the objective. And then I ran the Hormigons to the objective rather than charging and finishing off that squad, because then I would get 2 points for it. And then he annihilated the Hormigon squad. But those 2 points made a huge difference in the game. And so I would never have done that kind of thing, but all of a sudden it changes your strategies. And I love that. Absolutely love that. I just love the tactical objectives. I know some people don't. And sometimes you get these runaway victory stuff, but that happens anyways with regular games too, so it doesn't really matter. Like the regular objective games, it's just the end of the game that matters for grabbing them, so that has its own problems. But tactical objectives, awesome. That's my favorite part, by far. Let's see, what time is it? Necronomicon. Hey Matt, from what you've said about violence in movies, I assume that you were not a fan of the Space Marine video game. But other than that, did you like it? Yeah, see, the Space Marine video game is a good example. The game itself is really good. When you play it, it's fun, but the level of gore is just stupid. Like, it's already bad enough you're shooting your gun, it's just like huge amounts of blood are coming out of the guys, which is just like, there's not even that much in them. And then you have all those finishing moves where you're like, chain sword to the neck, chain sword to the stomach, chain sword on the head, or like stomp where you actually crunch the guy's head. Like, that's just, I know people are going to say, but that's 40K, this is brutal, violent thing. It's like, I know that it's the grim, dark future and all that, but it doesn't mean you have to depict it to that much level. And I know a lot of people are going to disagree with that, because I've watched people's videos playing it where they're like, oh yes, they made this like a mature game. It's not just the wussy stuff where you don't get to see all the blood and guts. But it's just like, oh, come on. I don't enjoy that stuff. The rest of the game it controlled well. It had a good flow to it. The weapons were fun. But to me, the violence is actually the reason I don't play it. So to me, that ruined the game. So everybody will have their opinion on that, but that is mine. XYZ Dude 0. I noticed that Mini Wargaming doesn't use ads at all. I should clarify, we do have ads on our videos, because YouTube ads. Why don't you guys run ads at all? I don't mind, but I'm rather confused. We do have ads. If you're a Vault member, you won't see them. We have ads they're more internal, like you have the background ad that advertises our own stuff. So we do have advertising, but it is minimal. The reason we don't do it is because there's not very much advertising money in this market. Like, think about it. Which wargaming companies are really putting a lot of money into advertising? And there aren't any. The biggest one out there is Games Workshop. It doesn't put money into advertising. Then you get all the independent retailers. While they can be successful, they don't have millions and millions of dollars each to contribute to this huge revenue pool. So you have to like advertise unrelated things like video games and all that, and then you get all sorts of other nonsense. So it was a combination of not making much money. Internal ads did better. And then things like, once we started putting up ads that we didn't have control over, then you get like graphic stuff or sexual stuff. Like, you know what I'm talking about. All those free-to-play games where the ads like some big-chested woman who's like, come and play with me. And then it's just like the stupid castle-building game or whatever. Or the ones where they're like, this game is not for children. And it's just another stupid browser game that has nothing to do with anything like that. But the ads themselves are all explicit. And I just got tired of all that. I'm like, we're not making hardly any money from these. Like, it was literally like a couple $100 a month we were making from those ads. And so I just like shut them off. I'm like, it's not worth it. So that's why. There's just not much money in our market to make it. Kraken and Dakin. Or Kraken and Dakin. I'm not quite sure which one. Hello, Matt. Thank you for making Mini Wargaming my favorite entertainment site. Thank you. However, I have a legitimate question for you. I'm trying my best not to be disrespectful here, but why do you find sexuality to be unacceptable? It is part of human nature. I don't find sexuality to be unacceptable. I just want to clarify that. It is part of human nature, and I don't think it should be hidden. Or do you just disapprove of the way it's portrayed in mainstream media? In that case, I understand. Yeah, that's basically the issue, is that it's portrayed in a way that is not reality. And that's the problem. And it's something that's, this is a heavy subject. I just realized. In order for me to answer this is going to be pretty heavy. It's a sacred thing meant for, here's straight up, that's what I believe, between a man and a wife who are legally and lawfully wed. That's it. Not outside of that at all. So that's why. I know some people will be like, whoa, blah, 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 blah. It's like, that's my strong belief for it. So I don't want to see it in media. I don't want to see it in advertising. I don't want to see it in movies. I don't want to see it in computer games. Because it's just that it's all this skews perception of what it actually is in reality. And that's what it comes down to. So that's why I'm against it. I don't think that it's a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. It's a wonderful thing in the right context. So that is what I think. So, heavy question there for pretty much the end. Let's see if I can find a lighter question to finish off with. Creed 1. Hi, Matt. I've been a Vault member for 3 months now, and I love it. Thank you. You and Dave are awesome. Thank you. In your opinion, are many young people getting into 40K? Here in Denver, there are a lot of great young guys playing. In my group, there are about 10 guys who are about 12 or 13, and they love the game. Is this an anomaly? Thanks for your thoughts and happy wargaming. Honestly, I have no idea. From my experience in the past, people get into it between the ages of 12 and 14, kind of go away from it as they get into high school and don't want anybody to find out that they play, and so they're kind of ashamed of it, and then get back into it when they're in college, or like when they're like 20 plus. So I don't know what's the norm at this point, because Games Workshop prices are a lot higher, so it might be harder for parents to buy it, or maybe not. I'm not sure. Rooks Hunter, are there any plans for future Apocalypticons? Not with us, but we have kind of handed over that to somebody else, so you can check it out at apocalyptic-con.com, and there's a new group that's taken over, and they're going to be doing it. Those were the videos that initially got me interested in mini wargaming, and they are so much fun to watch. Yeah, I know, it's just, with our resources being, there's so much that we're doing right now, we just don't have time to really run that event, so unfortunately not. Anyway, I think that's all the time that I do have right now. Thank you so much for your comments. I hope that you enjoyed the show. Of course, if you want your comments answered, leave a question or comment below. Unless you're watching this on YouTube, then click the link in the video description and go leave it there. This is Matthew from Mini Wargaming. Thanks for watching, and happy wargaming.